Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to this explainer. If you're a student trying to wrap your head around microorganisms, you are in exactly the right place. Consider this your ultimate study guide to the invisible world. Today, we're breaking down everything you absolutely need to know for your notes.
We're going to tackle this whole thing in 4 logical steps. First, we'll meet the invisible world. Second, we'll cover the major microbial groups. Third, growing microbes in the lab. And finally, we'll look at the symbiotic balance.
All right, Section 1, Meet the Invisible World. Here is a direct study buddy tip for you. Take this definition and put it right on your very first flashcard. A microorganism is a living organism that's just so remarkably small you can only see it clearly by using a microscope. And like all living things, they're made of cells. But what makes them unique is that many of them are just a single cell.
To really give you a sense of just how microscopic we're talking about here, think about the number 1,000. If you look at a standard ruler, you know those tiny little millimeter marks? Well, you could literally fit 1,000 bacteria lined up end to end just between 2 of those tiny marks. I mean, it's just mind-blowing when you actually try to picture it.
Okay, moving on to Section 2, the major microbial groups. Get your pens ready, guys, because this is the heavy lifting definition section. And honestly, absolute core test material. First up, bacteria. These are single-celled microorganisms that are much smaller than animal or plant cells, and they are found literally everywhere. Oh, and a quick grammar note for your exams. Bacteria is actually a plural word. If you're talking about just one of them, the singular word is a bacterium.
Now, what's really interesting here is that a lot of these rod-shaped bacteria aren't some terrifying invaders. No, these are actual bacteria that live completely harmlessly right inside our digestive systems. They're just a perfectly normal, microscopic part of our internal environment.
Next up, we have fungi. Now, this is a tricky distinction that trips up students all the time. So the singular word is fungus, and they aren't actually always microorganisms. A lot of fungi, like mushrooms and toadstools, grow quite large using thin threads under the ground. But there are also fungi that never produce mushrooms and are made of just a single cell. Because they don't have those threads and they're single-celled, they're completely microscopic. A really prime example of this is yeast. You've probably noticed that fine, white powdery substance on the skin of grapes before, right? Well, that powder is actually made up of millions of microscopic yeast cells just happily feeding on the sugar in the grapes. And when scientists look at yeast up close, you can see exactly how this microscopic fungus reproduces. They literally grow these tiny little buds right out of the sides of the main cells. Make sure you draw a clear comparison in your notes for our next 2 groups, because they're often found hanging out together in water. On one side, we have algae, which are tiny plant-like organisms, and on the flip side, we have protozoa, which are tiny animal-like organisms. And just for your vocabulary list, the singular forms are alga and protozoan.
And this brilliantly illustrates what's going on. If you look closely at just a single drop of pond water, it is absolutely teeming with life. You've got the plant-like algae with their bright green structures, and then you have the animal-like protozoa cells just swimming all around them. It's like a tiny, bustling jungle in a single drop.
All right, Section 3, Growing Microbes in the Lab. Remember how we just said a single microorganism is way too small to see? Well, when a single bacterium or fungus divides repeatedly, it creates a massive collection of cells. We call this collection a colony. So while the individual cell is totally invisible to us, the colony eventually grows big enough that you can just see it with your own naked eye.
Now, to grow these colonies safely in the lab, scientists rely on 2 really essential tools: a petri dish and a special kind of nutrient-rich jelly called agar jelly. Now listen up, because the absolute golden rule here is that the dish and the jelly must start completely sterile. That means any pre-existing living organisms on them have to be completely killed off before you even begin.
So how exactly do we catch microbes from the air to grow them? Well, first, you leave the sterile dish open for about 5 to 10 minutes. That lets the airborne microorganisms settle right onto the jelly. Second, you pop the lid back on and fasten it securely with sticky tape. Third, and actually this is a really surprising but critical step, you turn the whole dish upside down. We do this so any water droplets that form don't create puddles that could literally drown our new microbes. And finally, you just label it and wait a few days in a safe spot.
When you check back on it a few days later, you're going to see colonies forming. Every single one of those visible spots began as just one invisible microorganism.
And the coolest part is you can actually visually identify what you managed to grow. So colonies of bacteria usually have nice smooth edges, whereas colonies of fungi tend to look kind of furry or have these rough edges.
Moving into our final part, Section 4, the symbiotic balance.
Let me pose this classic beginner question directly to you. Knowing that they are absolutely everywhere, are all microorganisms harmful to humans? I mean, when you hear the words bacteria or fungus, do you immediately just think of disease?
Well, as the source material states plainly, most microorganisms are not harmful to humans. We honestly tend to get a pretty skewed perspective on this, but the reality is that while a few specific kinds absolutely can cause diseases or make you ill, the vast majority do not.
So, the crucial point is that we exist in this amazing symbiotic balance with these creatures. It's a real contrast of harmful versus helpful. A tiny fraction cause disease, sure, but many more act as our silent helpers, or they just exist as perfectly harmless neighbors in our shared environment.
To summarize the core takeaways for your notes here, most bacteria are totally 100% harmless. The specific types of bacteria living in our guts, they're completely harmless residents, just doing their thing, helping us digest. And the microorganisms floating in every breath of air we take, or living on the skin of our fruit, they are extremely unlikely to cause us any harm whatsoever.
Which leaves us with this final thought. If millions of invisible, harmless microbes are living on every single piece of fruit and floating in every single breath of air we take, what other invisible ecosystems are hiding right in front of us? Keep reviewing those notes, stay curious, and keep exploring the amazing microscopic world all around you.